Bum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum. Bring. Oh, it is a post All-Star game bendy here on the Blue Review presented by LAX. Welcome, everybody, to Wednesday. I am Marcus Grant, joined by Greg Bergman and a special guest today. It is our friend Bruce Kuntz. Bringing him on because we got draft stuff to talk about. We got prospect stuff to talk about, but we've got All-Star stuff to talk about as well. Bruce, it's good to see you again, man. How are things?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Good morning here. This was a fun day yesterday talking about the All-Star game, and I'm happy to be on here to talk prospects. Deadline's coming up. Draft just happened. So this mid-July time is always a big time of the year for prospects.
Yeah, for sure it was. We're going to dive into all of that, but first want to give a shout out to the folks at LAX, as always, transforming the travel experience, saving guest time. People Mover train hopefully coming early next year, so something to be excited about there. For more information, you can go to flylax.com/transforminglax. So yesterday, the Major League All-Star game happened. Was it the 95th edition, I believe it was, of the All-Star game? Yep. It ends in a swing-off.
Which was awesome.
I was going to say, Greg, we were all texting in the text chain about the swing off. I was scrolling social media, and it seems like the response was overwhelmingly positive of the swing off. But yeah, you were super into this, and I think you and Jeff are now conspiring to talk to Rob Manfred about making this like a real thing or something.
Yeah, I think Jeff and I, and Bruce knows Jeff very well. He's on Dodger Heads on Thursdays now. I was doing that spot, but I'm not allowed to. So Bruce took that spot right in there. I'm happy for you. And by the way, Bruce, people were asking for you in the chat yesterday, and now here you are today. So it all works out that way, even though we did ask you ahead of the time the chat asked. But yeah, Jeff and I are very much in on this swing off. I don't see why you don't just implement it starting next year. Honestly, there's no reason not to at this point. The runner on second, I don't care about the ghost runner on second, but this is just a much better way to do things. I think it's very much along the lines of the shootout in hockey or penalty kicks in soccer. If you want to do it a little bit different, you can say 10th inning, you just play regular, just a regular 3 out. There's no ghost runner, no nothing. If you get through that without you're still in a tie, go to the swing off. And I think that's just the best way to do it. It's exciting. It's an entertainment product. It was very entertaining. I mean, you may have some certain times when Miguel Rojas has to hit because it goes so far down the line because of ties. But I thought it was great. I think that is very much something. So now you see, Bruce, I'm on the side of implement it almost immediately. Marcus is like, it's gimmicky. Where are you?
I'm kind of more on Marcus's side. The thing that I have concern about it highlights only one specific aspect of your team, and you have no chance to let your pitching shine. So if you're a team that's built off of pitching, you're going to be naturally at a disadvantage. That kind of worries me. And it felt like it was awesome for an all-star game scenario where, everybody was able to go out there and just have fun with it. In a more serious scenario, I don't know how great it would play, but I think it's something they have to consider just from an entertainment perspective, even if you're sacrificing game quality.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think, I would like to see them play. I mean, I honestly would like to see them go back to kind of regular extra innings. And to your point, Greg, maybe it's 2 innings, right? We go 10th and 11th, and if it gets to the 12th, then we do a swing off. I also think it's a lot more exciting when it's Kyle Schwarber and like Pete Alonso potentially stepping in versus, if you have Miguel Rojas or somebody like that stepping in, it's not nearly as exciting about it. Also, a thing I learned literally just as we were starting, a friend sent me this text message because, a lot of people were wondering how those guys that got picked, right? Like everybody's wondering why no Aaron Judge, why no Shohei, why no Cal Raleigh or anybody like that. Apparently the names were predetermined, especially because a lot of the big stars weren't even in the ballpark by the time they got to the So apparently according to Dave Roberts, Ohtani had long since left. It was probably on a plane back home or something like that. I think a lot of people were like, wait, why wouldn't you have, Cal Raleigh won the home run derby the day before. Why wouldn't you have him in there? Well, probably because he wasn't there anymore. So that's some of it.
Yeah, but also, even if they were still there, they could have been in street clothes or they had not even picked up a bat for a couple of hours at that point and haven't been in the game. So going in there cold is probably not the best thing for you. It didn't seem like the smartest thing to do. And yes, if they're not there, there's nothing more.
There's really nothing you can do at that point.
Right. I love the whole Stowers thing though. That he had no idea. He thought it was a joke. He thought the whole thing was just a big old joke. He's like, yeah, okay. It's my first time here. You're messing with me. And then Dave goes on the field like, he doesn't believe it, but Kyle Stowers is going to be leading off. He's like, oh, what? This is real?
Yeah. But once again, Dave Roberts outmanages Aaron Boone because, look, Boone wins the Rooker-Stowers matchup, but I'd take Schwarber and Alonso all day over Arozarena and Aranda. So,
Aranda had no idea. He was like, man, you want me to follow this guy?
Right.
You want me to follow Kyle Schwarber hitting bombs?
Schwarber went 3 for 3 in the swing off, and now John Aranda has to follow that as well.
He's like, that's not my game. Like I can hit a home run, but that's not a normal thing for me.
I will say, this will be my last thing on it. It would have been fun. I know that the NL already had it wrapped up. It would have been cool to see Pete Alonso get his swing
for sure. Yeah, and that kind of speaks to the idea that if you put it into the regular season, it might not go as well because Jonathan Aranda is still an all-star and a great hitter, and he went over. I think you'd see a lot of over threes if you threw that into the regular season right away.
Yeah, that is a good point too. Like, how many rounds would this have to go? If you have guys who can't get one out of the ballpark,
you're still gonna go like for the Dodgers. You'll go like Shohei, Mookie, and Teo, right? Or even Freddie. If those guys, if you're still tied, if you're still tied, it goes to Pages, and eventually it'll get down to Rojas. But that's part of the fun.
Chicago White Sox swing offs could wind up being a form of torture.
That is a major torture.
Yeah, that seems like bad.
Miguel Vargas every time.
That seems like bad news for everybody. But it does. I mean, that very, very much has like a penalty kicks feel to it for soccer folks. All right, let's get to the thing that we actually really want to talk to Bruce about, which is the prospect side of things. Right, the Major League Baseball draft just wrapped up. The Dodgers with 21 selections in this thing, and you were pointing out before the show, Bruce. 14 pitchers out of 21 selections. It seems as though the Dodgers have identified a spot of need, huh?
Yeah, they always like to go pitching because ultimately, like, you can talk about position player prospects. It's easy for them to get blocked if you have great talent in the major leagues. That's exactly what is usually happening with the Dodger farm system. But pitchers, you can never have too many pitchers, whether it's bullpen, whether it's starting. You always need more pitchers. And the baseball draft ultimately is always a take the best player available kind of thing. And the Dodgers feel really good about their pitching development too. So when they see pitchers on the board, that there were guys that they followed their regular track record of taking injured pitchers who they were going to have to rehab, guys who could be relievers only but have great stuff. It followed the usual track record very well, where the Dodgers are just trying to add the best talent that they can.
Yeah. Do you see anybody on this? I'm looking through it right now, and obviously I'm not going to lie and say that I watched every round of the draft or know who any of these people are. But I see somebody named Cam Leiter from Florida State. Does he have any relation to Al Leiter?
Yeah, he's Al Leiter's nephew, and then Jack Leiter is the Ranger righty, Al's son. He's his cousin, I think. Then is how that works.
So is there anybody, is he somebody that we should be looking forward to as somebody that it could be a good pick? Is there anybody in here that has the ability that you see that would be like, okay, he's going to hit the major league sooner rather than later?
The first guy they took, Zach Root, is a guy that I think could move through decently fast because he isn't a super high ceiling type of pick. He's more of a high floor, like back end mid rotation kind of starter. He throws strikes. It's a sinker that is good for ground balls and a good curveball to work off of it. And that's the kind of profile that like he's not going to have much use of spending much time in single A. I think he moves up to at least high A pretty quick. And if he continues to throw strikes and the arsenal looks good, then he can move through pretty fast and become a back of the rotation sort of starter fairly quickly.
So they get Zach Root with the number 40 pick out of Arkansas. The very next pick, Charles Davalin, also from the University of Arkansas. And this is a guy I watched a little bit of College World Series and that sort of thing. Tell us about it, but a guy with big power is kind of what it seems to be his calling card.
Yeah, he's a really good athlete. He's only 5'9", but the power is certainly there. I kind of see him as a guy who eventually ends up in the 15 to 20 home runs per year sort of range, which you'd certainly take. And then he can play a good outfield and just be an overall athlete. So it was interesting. These first 2 picks, I don't think were by any means the highest ceiling guys that were on the board or that they could have taken, but it's kind of followed the trend in recent years where with those first couple of picks, the Dodgers usually don't like to go for guys that are going to wind up sliding over slot. And they like to go for these kind of prospects that might have been a little bit further down other boards, be able to sign them for right at slot or a little cheaper, and then save money for later in the draft.
Is there anybody on in these 20 rounds, these 21 picks that you think and go, oh, that was a sneaky good pick? Like, this guy's going to be good.
Yeah, and there's always a ton of those for the Dodgers, but the guy that really stood out for me was the 6th rounder, Mason Legenza. He's a high schooler outfielder out of Pennsylvania. Super good raw power, and the thing that stands out for me with him is that there's multiple tools that can be above average. The power could wind up being plus. The speed is good. The glove in the outfield is good, and he's got a good throwing arm too. So you're talking about 4 tools that could be above average to plus kind of potential. Swing and miss, we'll see where he's at with the hit tool. But for a guy that just has the raw ceiling that you want there in the 6th round, it's certainly there. He's 6'5" and hasn't eclipsed 200 pounds yet. So like the frame is something you can certainly dream on. And I think that's the kind of pick that when you talk about those first couple and not taking a prep guy early on, it's so that you can take a guy like Legenza in the 6th round and still be able to sign him away from his Pitt commitment and feel like you're adding a really high ceiling player to the farm system.
Yeah, and that was the next thing I was going to ask, because you talk about, trying to sign guys away from the commitment. I know a couple of these guys have signed. I think Connor O'Neill, the 9th round pick, has signed. Jacob Frost, who's a 10th round pick, he has also signed as well. Look, I would imagine Root, Davelin, Leiter, these guys are probably going to sign. Realistically, though, out of the 21 picks, how many can you imagine actually signing on, and how many end up going maybe somewhere else or going back to school?
Honestly, I think that most of the class this year will sign. Usually you can kind of identify, especially in rounds 10 through 20, there'll be, or 11 through 20, there'll be a couple there that you're like, yeah, that's a punt pick. Last year they took Eric Parker, a prep shortstop out of Georgia, and he had a Georgia commitment, wound up going to Georgia. That wasn't really a surprise. This year, though, I think most of this class seems like that they're guys that should sign. That's partly because almost everybody is college. They only took 4 guys that aren't already from a 4-year university, and those are guys that you usually expect to be signed. Rounds 1 through 10, I think that you can expect all those guys to get signed, because if they don't sign them, they lose that slot money. So usually if you're taking a guy in those rounds, especially like the 2 through 10 kind of range, then you expect them to be signed once you're sending in that draft pick. For the main signability risks, I'd look at the 17th, 18th, and 20th rounders. Sam Horn, the 17th round pick, he is the Mizzou two-way guy. He plays quarterback for their football team, and he's a right-handed pitcher, hasn't appeared too much. The question there is, if they do sign him, he's got a very high ceiling, but isn't fully committed to baseball yet. So he's going to compete for the Mizzou quarterback job in the fall. If he wins that, even if he already signed the baseball contract, it sounds like he's going to play football. So that's something to watch. Finn Edwards is a JC guy who has a commitment to Arizona State, really high electric arm, but that commitment will probably take some extra dollars. And then the 20th rounder, the last guy taken in the draft, is a southpaw, Shane Brinham from Canada. He's got a Michigan commitment, and that felt like a pick that, with the last pick of the draft, they thought, let's just take this kid, see if we can make something happen, and wind up signing him. But I don't think that's particularly likely.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I was going to say Sam Horn sounded very familiar to me.
It's not that Sam Horn. No.
Okay. Yeah. No. I just was like, oh, maybe the Mizzou quarterback. Maybe that's why.
For anybody asking, yeah, there was a Sam Horn who played first base for the Red Sox back in like the late 80s, early 90s, I believe it was.
Man, yeah, not that guy. But
not that guy. No, not that guy at all.
Well, I'm ready to move on. But Marcus, if you have any more questions for the draft itself, then go ahead. But I was going to move on.
No, not particularly. To your point, though, Bruce, you mentioned the signability of these guys, and I'll say, has this become a theme now? Because I know, for years when I worked in the A's organization, they had made it a point to draft college guys just for the point of being able to sign these guys. Is that something the Dodgers are looking at too? Like, hey, we're going to get a guy who's 21, 22 years old, doesn't really have a whole lot of opportunity to maybe go back to college, and because we know we can sign these guys.
Yeah, it's a balance thing where you always want to round out the class with mostly college guys that you know that you're going to be able to sign without having to pay extra. And then by doing that, you give yourself the flexibility to go out and sign a couple of prep guys that have higher ceilings and have more leverage when they go to the negotiating table. So it's always a matter of balancing it and being able to create the most complete class possible. Like I said, this year I thought they leaned even more into college picks than they have sometimes in the past. So it was certainly a college and pitcher heavy draft overall this year.
Yeah, one more real quick. And Thomas Visick put this in the chat, and I was thinking about it too. They took Davalan instead of. I'd seen this yesterday, and it put my mind. No, I'm not. I'm not just making things up. They took Davalan over Quentin Young. Any thought process as to why they went that way instead of the other way?
Yeah, that's exactly kind of the thing I'm speaking to, because Quentin Young was connected to the Dodgers so much, and he was connected to the Padres too, wound up falling to the Twins. And I think that, it's hard to tell from the outside. I don't know this for sure, but it could have just been noise that the Dodgers are perfectly fine with in order to create some misdirection. Quentin Young was one of those kind of prep picks that early on, if you take him, then you're going to have to pay a big bonus. And then that kind of just the domino effect and how it affects the rest of your draft, and it takes away from your ability to really add good depth. And I think that's where the Dodgers prefer to be with these MLB drafts, is try to create a deep class where they're getting talent all the way through all 20 rounds and not having to splurge big on a prep guy early and then be out of money for the rest of the draft.
No, it's very, very interesting. Okay, now I'm going to move on because I want to talk a little bit about trade deadline stuff and minor leagues. So the names that we hear the most when it comes to who could possibly come up and who could possibly be traded from the minor leagues, the names are always pretty similar. It's Alex Friedland, it's Josue DePaula, and it's even Bobby Miller now is on the trade block, and who knows what's going to happen with him. But of those guys, is there a guy that you could say could really see moving or I have a different question, but I'm going to just stick with that. Is there one of those guys that you see moving? Because I have a Josue DePaula one too.
Yeah, I don't think that I particularly see the very top of the system getting moved this year. I don't think that they are going to be super aggressive at the deadline. I know, like, at least for me, if I were in their shoes, I wouldn't be, because the trade deadline nowadays is it's just ridiculous. These last few years since they expanded the postseason, there's really only like 5 true sellers. So the market every year is just super, super slanted towards the sellers, and the Dodgers just aren't a team that likes to go out there. And if you target like one of the top relievers, let's say they go after Yon Duran from the Twins, certainly would be a great ad, but you don't want to give up Josue DePaula in that kind of trade for a reliever. That's just not how the Dodgers operate. And I don't think that they're going to the reason that they brought in so many pitchers, and we went into spring training saying there's not enough space for all these guys. They've still got Blake Treinen coming back. They've got Edgardo Enriquez in AAA. Like, there's so many pitchers already that are rehabbing or on the roster that I think that was intentional in order to try and avoid having to go and part with one of those top names at the deadline.
So just answer the DePaula question too, because I'm curious where you're going with that.
Yeah. So the DePaula question was basically that he is in a position of need. He's an outfielder and he does have pop. So is that something that he's not really blocked? Because I think a lot of guys in the infield, the catcher, and there's a lot of spaces on this Dodger team that you're blocked, but outfield is what we are looking for. Do you think, is DePaula someone that they're going to hold on to because that he is in a position of need? And could he possibly even come up this year?
Yeah, I don't think that he's blocked by any means. I think the reason he's not in big leagues is just because he's still so young. He just turned 20 and he hasn't reached AA ball yet. So he's a year and a half probably out still for sure. So I wouldn't expect him this year at all. I think that's impossible. Then we're just going to have to be patient with him. But he just won the Futures Game MVP award, hit a ball 109 miles an hour, a home run in that Futures Game left on left. And he is just supremely impressive. The approach is mature and big league quality already. And he's really taken strides this last year and a half with hitting for power and seeing some of that raw power start to go onto the field. And he's just a super good hitter. And I would definitely be excited about his progression, but remain patient because he's still very young.
A little bit further down, Zaire Hope seems to be sort of developing as well. Look, the Dodgers right now, one of the sort of, pressure spots is in the outfield, right? Michael Conforto's probably not much longer for Dodger Blue. Teo Hernandez is not a great outfielder and is playing hurt on top of that. James Outman, good defense, good glove, no bat. I mean, the prospect, I know it's not soon for Hope, but is he developing in a way that the Dodgers feel comfortable with?
Yeah, I think that Hope and DePaul are in a very similar place. They actually might get moved up to Double-A together, which I expect to happen anytime. It could be by the time the second half starts. I think that they've done what they can in High A, but both those guys are kind of on a similar track. They're both 20 years old. They're both outfielders that are very high ceilings that are getting ready to come up to the major leagues probably in mid to late, maybe 2027, maybe 2026 if they continue to hit this way in the upper minor leagues. But they're both on a similar track of they've dominated the lower minor leagues, done everything they can, and now you're going to get to see them move up to Double-A and see what they can do against the caliber of pitching that is certainly a lot closer to the big leagues. That jump from High A to Double-A is the toughest one in the minor leagues, so that's the one to really watch how they do in that immediate step up. It took down Diego Cartaya when he made that move. Takes down countless other guys. That's the step into minor leagues that's the most difficult. So if they're able to make it through that and continue to hit like they have so far this year with Great Lakes, then you can really push in the chips and know those guys are future superstars.
What would you think the idea for Alex Freeland is? Because he's kind of towards the end of his time. He's right in that Gavin Lux area of that. He's like a 4A guy. So what do you think happens with Alex Freeland?
Yeah, I think he's going to be the utility infielder moving forward, at least. If they decide that they want to move Mookie Betts off of shortstop for any multitude of reasons, then I think he's the next guy up to be the regular shortstop for the Dodgers moving into the future. Not to say that he's a particularly high ceiling guy. That's something that I always like to say when I talk about Freeland is like, don't expect him to come up and be making all-star teams or anything like that. But if he comes up and he's a plus defender at shortstop and in the lineup every day as a switch hitter with some good pop in the bottom of the lineup as well, like that's a great player who could turn in 3 or 4 wins every year, and you'd be perfectly happy with that. So I think his role is kind of just like wait and see in AAA right now. And as soon as they need an infielder, he started to play some third base these last couple of weeks after Max Muncy got hurt. So if that winds up being something that they need to just go to him, Kike Hernandez just went on the injured list. Like if Miguel Rojas were to as well or something like that, then Freeland might have to be the next guy up. So he's, like I said, just in a wait and see kind of pattern of as soon as they need him, he's pretty close to ready.
Looking at the guys from last year's draft, any of those guys starting to maybe make some moves in the system at this point?
Yeah, so let's see. I'm thinking back to last year. I've got all these guys kind of just once they're in the system, they're in the system.
They're in the system. No, I get it totally.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me see if I can pull up some names for you so you can.
I'll pull up my draft list from last
year.
So
while you're looking that up, don't forget anybody. While you're looking that up, just Jackson Ferris, also a big name that came over with Zaire Hope. How's Jackson Ferris been faring? It seemed like he just kind of okay.
He's had an interesting year in Double-A. He's been up and down, and he's been like so many pitchers in the Dodger system, especially the young guys like he is, of where he'll have one start where he goes out and throws 6 great innings and will approach 10 strikeouts and just looks excellent. And then the next year he'll go out and just get demolished. And so the numbers don't look great this year overall. But the ceiling is still certainly there. I think that he's got a number 2 kind of ceiling and is just going through the speed bumps on the progression to hopefully get to that point.
Well, I know it's been great talking to you. We're just about out of time. We'll definitely have to get you back, especially once the trade deadline hits. I'm sure there'll be some prospects going one way or another. But for folks who don't know, Bruce, where can they find your stuff?
Yeah, so I write for Dodgers Digest. You can find me there. Like Greg said, I'm now on every Thursday Blue. On not Blue Review, the Dodger Blue 1958 Dodger Heads show. So you can check me out there too. Real quick, just to throw in for last year's draft, Kellen Lindsay has been in Single A and looked good. Chase Harlan in rookie ball too. So those guys, long way away, both high school draftees, but be excited about them.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely go check out Bruce and his different platforms that he's on. You also find him on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, bnicholas7. So go check him out there. Bruce, man, appreciate the time. I know school's starting back for you real soon. So best of luck in your senior year down there at the beach.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
I appreciate that. Stick around.
Thanks,
of course.
Bruce.
We got the first pitch coming up here on the ESPN LA YouTube channel. Thanks to the chat. Thanks to LAX as well. That'll do it for us on this edition of the Blue Review presented by LAX. For Bruce Kuntz, for Greg Bergman, I'm Marcus Grant. We'll see you back here tomorrow, 8:30 to 8:55. Have a good one, y'all. See you.
See you.
Review.